to Kingery 2020 for President of the United States of America, the government. This is an introductory video to the documentary of the Daniel M. Kingery presidential administration. And here is the campaign jingle when said or sung to the tune of "These Boots Are Made for Walking" by Nancy Sinatra. The shovel's made for shit. So that's just what I'll do. I'll shovel shit from government and make it work for you. And as you see, the various signs on what is becoming or is my campaign vehicle. It is a human-powered vehicle, and this is where I plug the motor in. They look like feet. The three signs of the red, white, and blue are elements of our nation's pledge: our lives, our fortunes, and our honor. The donate, obviously, it's a little confusing because people don't put very much in the donation box. Ask how reading and math stop political corruption. When we realize that governments are corporations by definition, the Declaration and the Constitution, that is the unanimous Declaration of the United States of America, and the Constitution of the United States of America become reading and math, reading comprehension, and mathematical story problems to solve how our votes are supposed to be counted, who's eligible to vote, and how we are supposed to control our government. Unity with diversity strengthens survivability. A body that can only handle one disease is likely to suffer when struck by different diseases. Therefore, unity strengthens the body, diversity increases its chances of survivability. The Declaration, the Constitution, the law, the design, the practice, and the perception, how they are supposed to work together. Obviously, at cleanhonestgov.com, the design for the nation is the Declaration. The perception should be, and the practice should be, the Constitution of the United States of America. Unfortunately, the design and the practice are not on the same path, and they should be. Our perception of what is going on, unfortunately, doesn't match either the perception or the design. With the Declaration, let's see if I can get this in here. The Declaration is the people's how-to guide for properly controlling government. It's the foundation upon which the Constitution is built. Without its authority, anything in the Constitution is void. The Constitution is the guide to measure the performance of the people in government. It is the framework from which every law must hang. Without the Constitution's authority, laws are void and must not be enforced. The law is tyranny, despotism, and treason when the Constitution does not authorize that law to exist. Our nation's true pledge is the United States of America is, ever since 1776, quote, and for support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Admittedly, this does not make very much sense unless we know the exact purpose of the declaration. I'll get into that in a little bit. And we got some civics must-knows. 1. Citizens own government. 2. Majority of the total body of registered voters control the government. Constitutions are the law over government. Know how to count our votes. Enforce all the above by our nation's true pledge to each other. And obviously, if we want clean, honest government, cleanhonestgov.com shows us how we can get there. Then, depending on how the light handles this, or the camera handles the light, the Declaration identifies tyranny. The Constitution, Article 3, Section 3, defines treason. To know the two of them, we must know what is war. By definitions from 1756, war is the use of political force against withstanders. Obviously, most people know the typical types of war, the bombs and shoot 'em up and all that sort of stuff, but very few people are aware that our own governments have declared war against us by passing laws that violate our Constitution. Thus, the Declaration calls that a mark of tyranny, subjecting us to the laws that are foreign to our Constitution. And any government official who enforces the laws that violate the Constitution are guilty of treason by giving aid and comfort to the enemy, thus the domestic enemy. Governments derive their just power from the consent of the governed. And we'll get into a little bit more of that in just a bit with the nation's pledge. One of our more important amendments that most people have never heard about is Amendment 9. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage other rights retained by the people. Now, what is a right? Oh, the solar panel. Yes, project in works. I will be attaching the solar panel, one additional one, with a charge controller to a bank of batteries that will power the electronics, laptops, phones, the headlights, taillights. Obviously, I do not have yet. Turn signals, backup lights, and nighttime lights for the signs. Here's a little bit about the intention of government. Legislative branch should create laws and offices that the Constitution of the United States of America authorizes. See Article 1 and 6. This applies to the cities, the counties, the states, and the federal jurisdictions because they all swear an oath to the U.S. Constitution. All levels of executive branch should only enforce constitutionally authorized laws and acts. See Article 2 and 6, because all executive officers swear an oath to the U.S. Constitution. The judicial branch, all levels of judicial branch, must first judge the law as written under original meaning against the Constitution of the United States of America as written under original meaning to determine if a law violates the Constitution. Only if the law is constitutional may the facts be tried as to whether the accused person violated the law in question or not. See Articles 3 and 6. Our nation's pledge. Well, first let's cover the pledge we are taught to be our nation's pledge. The individual pledges their allegiance to a flag of a United States of America and to the republic for which that flag stands. Okay, what is the republic? Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution tells us exactly what that republic is. Section 4, the United States shall guarantee to every state in the Union a republican, thus the republic, form of government. Congress knew the treason they have begun when they began forcing very young, impressionable minds to recite that pledge to the government, which literally owes its allegiance to the people through the Constitution to which they swear an oath to defend and support, and at the federal level and possibly state level, against enemies foreign and domestic. The Declaration, once again, identifies domestic enemies in our own government as tyrants and despots, any of them who exercise any of those grievances listed in the Declaration. Our nation's true pledge. And for support of this, Declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. What's that mean? It's simple. Once you realize that the entire purpose of the Declaration is there for the equal protection of everyone's rights, then this pledge makes more sense. If I, as a United States American, see that your rights are unjustly under attack, whether I like you or not, or the right you're exercising, and especially if I do not like you or the right you're exercising, as long as it is unjustly under attack, it is not just my right, it is my duty to come to your aid and help you defend that right. If every United States American does that, the size of our government shrinks to a manageable level where any citizen can name every department of government and possibly even the heads of those departments at the time. But, along with Amendment 9, what is a right? According to the Declaration and the Constitution, they both give several examples, such as religion, speech, press, assembly, petition, keep, bear, alter, abolish, sleep, drive, smoke, drink. They don't actually mention the sleep, drive, smoke, and drink, etc. But they are covered in Amendment 9. Well, pause for this siren here, I think. Okay. So all a right is an action that the people have done before the government has passed a law to restrict it. So people say, well, the Constitution doesn't mention killing or murder. This is true. But it is the protection of the people's rights who are not unjustly violating someone else's rights. If you murder someone, you have unjustly violated their right to life. Thus, the government has the authority to punish that activity. But if your action, your right that you are exercising, does not unjustly violate the right of anyone, then it is off limits for the government to regulate that right. Let's take, let's say, same-sex marriages or gender alteration. Yes, everybody has these rights. Many people do not exercise them, and many people choose not to. But they do not possess the right to unjustly violate the rights of those who do wish to exercise them, thus pitting religions against other people most of the time, and the U.S. Supreme Court failing their duty to the Constitution by basically putting religious folk out of business because they refuse to service or do things that violate their ethics and their religion. Granted, I don't hold much for religion, but they have rights as well. I also don't hold much for same-sex, but they have rights as well. Simply because I don't agree with either of them does not mean I am supposed to let the government do what it will and let other people do what they will unjustly to violate their rights. These documents are simply there to help us secure our rights. The government is granted certain authority with respect to certain rights that are listed in the Constitution, but all other rights are off limits. Since the government has failed or refused to simply abide by Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, the amendment article, to bring the Constitution supposedly up to date and authorize all of these laws that violate the Constitution and violate the people's rights unjustly, it is their fault. But as tyrants have always done, they find it more expedient to pass unconstitutional laws and see how long it takes the body of citizens to unify, to help protect each other's rights, to defend themselves against an unjust government. Okay, back to the human power vehicle. You can see a little bit better on this side, maybe. Plug in the human power motor. Then the steering wheel still needs a little work. Right now it's that little lever right up here. Steering column goes down to the chains to pull the front end left and right. The seat, storage compartments, these will be stored elsewhere as well. And most all of this other stuff will be packed up and stored inside the vehicle. And just in case you want to know, this is a compartment with more storage and where the cash box is accessed. And this area up here has more storage and present half of the restroom. The other half of the restroom is, let's see, maybe you can see it there. It's the bottle above the water bottle. So inside you have the, still outside, the forward, reverse, neutral. For going forward and backwards, it still needs a clutch system or a neutral system between the chain, and I don't know if that'll come through, but between the forward, reverse, neutral and the drive axle, there needs to be a system to take the tension off of the drive axle. The solar panel, along with another one, will be mounted probably towards the rear as the umbrella goes more towards the front. And there you have the Daniel M. Kingery initial campaign vehicle for the presidency of 2024. Whether or not this happens is thoroughly up to you. Now that I can't see what I'm recording, I will just assume that this is okay, because the lens on the other side is kind of covered up with tape because the screen is all cracked. Anyway, not a problem. So, in 2007, 2008, I entered the U.S. presidential candidacy, registered with the Federal Election Commission, and started my campaign on a whopping budget of $16,000 after closing a laundromat after I've had it for 6 months, and in accord with the contract that I had 6 months to decide whether I was going to keep it or not. I took it from averaging $50 a day to averaging a little over $350 a day in that 6-month period. Some people said I was crazy to turn it loose. But I also, during that 6 months, started watching the U.S. presidential campaign debates and realized I could do a better job. But in order to do that job, you have to put me in the office. I campaigned in 35 states, like I said, on that whopping budget of $16,000. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough money to buy the major advertising space that the national news media require in order for them to consider a candidate viable. Anyhow, the candidacy is for real. I just haven't re-registered with the Federal Election Commission yet because I have not spent over $5,000 on the campaign itself. The human-powered vehicle, though used for the campaign, is also my personal living vehicle and transportation. So I don't count that money as along those lines. Now, hopefully, in the next few weeks, I'll have a little bit better camera and be able to do the educational part of the video about the administration, the documentary, about how it will look, how the country will look, and how the government will look as implementing the various planks of the platform detailed on cleanhonestgov.com. So there's a little more work to do, but you are key. Money does not buy elections. Various candidates have spent upwards of $1 billion in the past elections and lost, so money does not buy elections. Hopefully, you, as you become better informed about the Declaration of the Constitution and how we are supposed to use them to control the powers of our government, will begin to realize that all registered voters do in fact vote. The clause from the Declaration states that governments derive their just power from the consent of the governed, as seen on the sign earlier. How do you get the consent from a known body, a known number of people? According to the 1756 definition for consent, the act of consenting, a meeting of the mind, a consensus, an accord, an agreement. You must get at least one more than 50% of that total number of registered voters to agree to the same thing. Thus, it is the responsibility of the individual or item on the ballot to inform the total body of registered voters so that they might get the majority of them to agree to their position or their candidacy. When 60% of the total number of registered voters refuse or fail, for whatever reason, to submit a ballot to the polling station, that body of registered voters has literally agreed that everything and everyone on that ballot is garbage, or at least not worth their time and effort to get a consenting ballot to the polling station. So there's only two ways that you, as a registered voter, can vote. You will either consent to someone or something on the ballot by submitting a ballot with a check mark by what you want to pass. Then, the other way of non-consent, when the ballot does not have a check mark against that which is on the ballot, usually like candidates' names. By not submitting a ballot, you have not yet consented, and non-consent is as valid as a nay vote. When people raise their hands for yays and nays, or sound off their voices yay or nay, consent or don't consent. People have been taught, and society is generally taught, that when you don't submit a ballot, you have not voted. This is not true. They say you've abstained or that you've yielded. These two are not true. In order for you to yield, you must not register as a voter, and therefore you are yielding your potential vote, because you're not registered, to the will of the majority of those who do register. Now, in order to abstain, you must remove your name from the voter registration so that you no longer have a vote to be accounted for. Then only those people who are on the voter registration, the majority of them must consent to the same thing. Thus, the importance of thoroughly purging every voter registration after the previous election. This removes the names of people who have died, the names of people who have moved out of the district, the names of people who have lost interest. And unfortunately, some people have registered their pets as voters. And then, to re-register, one must present a photo ID and proof of residency and possible citizenship that they are in fact eligible. There is no constitutional age requirement as long as you are a citizen or a citizen taxpayer, no matter how young. I know I've heard some people say, but can you really trust the vote of a 5-year-old who spends their birthday money at the store and pays sales tax? Tell me, what is the absolute worst decision a 5-year-old can make at the polling station for their selection? Well, Daddy and Mommy are going to vote this way, so they must know what they're doing, so I'll do that. Well, that's the same way as an 80-year-old or a 50-year-old or a 30-year-old saying, well, my family has voted this way for generations, so that's how I'm going to vote. Well, they might happen to like beauty contests, so they're going to vote for the prettiest candidate. Well, that's kind of how Kennedy won the election over Nixon. While radio broadcasting, from what I understand, Nixon was way ahead in the polls. When it went televised, Nixon looked nervous on TV and not as pretty as Kennedy. So Kennedy shot ahead in the polls and won, for the better or the worse of it. Then you have people who vote like they are in Vegas. Hey, I like to vote for a winner. I like to be on the winning side, so I'm going to vote for the candidate that's ahead in the polls. All of these are adult, if you will, adult reasons for selecting their balloted item. And some of them even get more ridiculous than that. I would trust the choice of a child under the age of 18 more so than those over the age of 18, because by the time the child is 18, they have gone through the government indoctrination camps and are fully competent, according to the government, to make a bad decision. That's why they graduate them. Sorry. I too was one of them. And it took me nearly 25 years to undo my 13 years of indoctrination camps of K-12 to where this documentary is going to present that information in practically its entirety. Now, the youth have better access than most adults have had in generations past because of the internet. Granted, there's a lot of garbage on the internet, like there's been a lot of garbage in published books and a lot of garbage on TV and radio and newspaper over the past 200 or 300 years. But hopefully, if the parents have done their job halfway decent, they've taught their child how to wade through the garbage and sift out the actual truth of the matter. But based on what I've seen, most adults don't have that skill either. So, my logic in saying that a 5-year-old or even a 3-year-old is as competent as any adult is based on 3 factors. 1, if the parent allows their child to go into a store and spend that child's money, be it, like I said, birthday, gift, allowances for doing chores either around the houses or around the house or around the neighbor's house, or they found the money. That child has been declared competent by the parents to transact business within society. The store clerk, if they accept the cash and tender the product to the child, society, by way of the store, has declared that that child is competent enough to transact business within society. The government, by not exempting citizen taxpayers under the age of 18 from paying tax, the government has declared that anyone who pays tax is competent enough to transact business within society. Thus, the parents, society, and the government have declared that these youth are thoroughly competent to transact business within the society, and thus eligible to vote if they so choose to register. The question is, parents, how well do you trust your education process of your own children to actually trust them to make a sound decision at the polling station, as opposed to just voting the way mommy and daddy vote? If the parents say my child's not competent enough to do that, then don't give them any money. Don't allow them to have any money, and do not let them buy anything in the store. I'll bet your children come up in an uprising against that pretty quickly. Society, if you don't think these youth are competent enough to transact business, then make sure no store will transact business with anyone for any reason under the age of 18. And government, if you think these youth are not competent enough to vote or transact business in society, then pass more unconstitutional laws that exempt these youth from paying any tax whatsoever, and you will have opened up a whole nother can of worms. Hey son, see that house over there? How would you like to live there? Tell you what, I'll loan you the money. Since it will be put in the child's name, and the parent will most likely co-sign for the child, the purchase of that house cannot be taxed because it is someone under the age of 18 buying it. Hey son, how'd you like that sports car, that big ass motorcycle? Tell you what, when you get big enough to reach the pedals, you can drive it, otherwise I'll just ride you around in it. It'll be in your name. You can have it when you turn 18. Want to see the tax dollars government receives drop in a big hurry? Let them pass that law. Anyway, this is about enough for the introductory to the documentary that is about to show up. And it's a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I think that if I've caught your attention on any one of the items, you have watched to the end. Please share and pass this around. This is getting close to the end of July, and I've got a hearing for refusing to vacate a park because the park police officers were violating Amendment 9 by enforcing no camping laws, because we have exercised and retained the right to camp and sleep in public, because we've not authorized the government to regulate these with a constitutional amendment, as we have our right to privacy with Amendment 4. We've allowed the government very strict and limited access into that, to which they've unconstitutionally expanded with the Treason Act. The Patriot Act. See, the government has learned if you put a pretty name on it, or a patriotic name on it, like the Affordable Care Act or the Patriot Act, people will buy it without ever looking into it or researching it. The Affordable Care Act requires that you buy insurance. Nothing in the Constitution have we authorized our government to force us to buy any commercial product. These are just some of the things that will be touched on. And some of the things that will be covered will be projects and programs that the government could have done, constitutional executive orders to do things like actually drain the swamp, actually reduce the tax burden on the working class, and actually punish people for criminal activity, among others. If you want to get a sneak preview and participate in this documentary, Please review the website at cleanhonestgov.com and email me. It's on the website. You have to find the contact page, go to the pages and links page, go to the bottom of that. Usually it'll be the contact page down there. Anyway, it's Daniel M. Kingery at gmail.com. DANIEL MKINGERY at gmail.com, and I'll put that in the description as well as my phone number. Thank you very much. Good night. See you then.